Well, let me start over. Welcome everyone to the June 7th Redevelopment Commission meeting. We appreciate everyone coming to tonight's meeting, and we're just going to go ahead and jump into the agenda with the roll call.
Deb Hutton here.
Deborah Meyerson here.
David Walter here.
Nick Kappas is present. Staff.
Larry Allen, legal.
Jeff Underwood, controller, treasurer. John Zodi, hand.
Rashida Finley, hand.
Alex Crowley, Economic and Sustainable Development.
All right, I believe that is everyone. Well, thanks for everyone for joining, and we're going to go ahead into the second item of the agenda, which is the reading of the minutes for May 17th.
Yeah, I read through the minutes and I didn't see any changes. I'll make a motion. We accept the minutes. This is David Walter.
Before you make that motion, David?
Certainly.
Deborah, I'm a Deborah also, but I go by Deb, and I know you've written in your screen you're a D-E-B-O-R-A-H, as I am, but in the minutes you are a D-E-B-R-A. So I wondered if you'd like to have that corrected, so because it's going forward how you're represented.
Yeah, thank you for catching that. I would appreciate a correction, especially because that way it's consistent across all documents in addition to being correct. So thanks for flagging that.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so I made a motion. I think we need a second.
I'll second the amendment.
Yeah.
Deborah's name.
So we have a motion. We have a motion, a second. Christina, were you able to capture that?
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we have a motion, a second. Let's go ahead and go through roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. Minutes are approved unanimously. Third item is examination of claim register for May 28th. Any comments or questions by the commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Deb Hutton, so moved to approve.
Deborah Meyerson, second.
Okay, we got a motion, a second, and now let's go through roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. Claim registers for May 28th, 2021 have been approved unanimously. On to the fourth item on the agenda, which is the examination of payroll registers for May 21st, 2021. Any comments or questions? If not, I would entertain a motion for that.
Deborah Meyerson, also moved.
David Walter, second.
Okay, I believe there's a motion for approval and a second. So let's go ahead and go through roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. So payroll registers have been unanimously approved for May 21st, 2021. All right, on to the fifth item in the agenda is the report of officers and committees. Director Zodi, do you want to lead us off?
Pardon me, thought I had myself unmuted. Thank you, Mr. President. Not too much of a report tonight. Just want to invite NRBC members tomorrow. I'm going to join the mayor and some community leaders, Amber Scobie, Tina Peterson, and Efrat Efferman for housing press conference. We're going to talk about some housing issues and have some information from the Housing and Security Task Force that United Way and Community Foundation have been leading. And that is tomorrow at noon at the Housing Authority at 1002 North Summit Street. So any of you are invited to attend if you'd like. We wanted to just pass that information along, and that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Director Zodi. Appreciate that. And best of luck with that meeting tomorrow. So, legal.
I'm happy to answer any of the commissioners' questions. And for the public, I would just note that the Redevelopment Commission met in executive session to discuss strategy related to a real estate transaction prior to this. And per the statute, anything in that executive session is confidential up until the time that an official purchase agreement is approved by the RDC. Otherwise, if any of you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Mr. President, I believe you're muted again. I apologize. I'm not.
I have
muted
no.
yet, I promise you.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with this. All right. Someone's trying to mute me. So thank you very much for that. If there's no questions for Larry, we're just going to go on to the treasurer's report.
No report, but happy to answer any questions as we go through the agenda, or if you have any now.
Okay. Not really hearing any speak up, so we're gonna thank you, and we're gonna move forward to the business development updates.
Two very brief updates related to the new parking garages. Generally speaking, I want to let you know that we're starting to get some inquiries for both commercial spaces, which is encouraging, and we'll bring you up to date on how that progresses. The artwork for the 4th Street garage is also coming together. If you've been by it recently, you'll see that it's missing something important, which is that great artwork that's going to go up in those areas between the columns of brick. And there was a challenge associated with some production. We were able to work through that, and so we should see that come together. It'll be a really important part of the architecture of that garage. So look forward to that. That's going to be a nice addition to that 4th Street garage.
Okay, awesome. I really appreciate that update. I mean, I'm excited for that artwork too. So, any questions for Dr. Crowley? No? All right. Well, thank you very much for that report. We're just going to go ahead, everyone, and jump right into business. So first item on today's new business is Resolution 21-31, which is the approval of project review and approval form for 7-line construction. Who's up?
That would be me, and we have some engineering folks here as well. This is a funding request for the B-line trail. This is a backup funding at this particular point in time. We're actually reviewing other alternatives to fund the remainder of this project, but we needed to get this in as a backup. And then as we analyze those, if we need to, we'll give you an update in the future, I would say within the next 1 or 2 meetings, that whether we will need this as a permanent backup funding or whether we were able to obtain other funding. But this is just so that the project will be fully funded as appropriate use of TIF funds. And I'm happy to answer any questions. If you've got questions specifically about the 7-line, then the engineering folks can jump on and answer those as well.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Larry or engineering, city engineering?
So this is Deb Hutton. So just so I understand this resolution, Jeff, you're not asking us to approve any kind of funding in specific funding. We're just approving the concept that the RDC approves, the concept of the 7-line with funding it however it happens in the future, and that if you need to come for specific lines of approval for funding, you'd come back to us. Do I understand that correctly or incorrectly?
We're actually asking you to basically reserve the last part of the funding for this out of TIF funds. What I'm telling you is we're not sure that we will need this, but in order to show to the Board of Public Works that we have a full funding amount,
Okay.
this is the backup for it. So this just kind of closes the gap for them so they can go ahead and award the contract as we work through these other issues. But we should know fairly quickly. But in order for them to go ahead and award the construction contract and move forward, we wanted to go ahead and have this in place, and then we'll come back and either withdraw it and say we didn't need it, or we'll say, yes, we permanently will need this funding.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
So Jeff, for the 673, 609, from the consolidated TIF, say you don't need it, what's the process then for that amount to not then be allocated towards 7 line?
We would come back and have you cancel the project funding request. So essentially you would approve it this time and we'll come back in the next meeting or two. And then if we don't need it, we'll say, please go ahead and unencumber by voting this back out.
So could it be a situation where maybe you don't need 673, but maybe you're like, well, we need 350,000 from you, and it could
Yes.
just be that number,
Yeah, it
right?
could be that. So it could be an amendment to either say we don't need any of it, we need some of it, or we need all of it.
Okay.
Just a quick question in terms of how gap funding can be used. If the timing is such, obviously in this case, the timing is for the Public Works to be able to approve the project. If the sought after priority funding came in later, but the funding was needed sooner, is that something that could, I'm just trying to get a sense of when the door closes in terms of the use of the gap funding. Right now it's on paper. At some point it might be, in actuality.
Sorry, jumped in too early. Essentially, this is the tail end. So we have the majority of the funds that would be spent first, and then it would come back to this. That way, even if we ask you for it and we didn't need it, then it would revert back, kind of thing. So, and this is similar to what we do sometimes. Gap funding is we may come to you with a street project that's federally funded. So we come to you with a full funding agreement, say it's a $2 million project, but we know it's 80% eligible for Fed reimbursement through the state. You approve the full $2 million, we may spend the $2 million, but then as we get reimbursements, it comes back into the fund. So it gets back down to the net amount that we have told you about.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I open up to the public for any comments.
It appears the representative from the B Square Beacon has his hand raised, if the chair would like to acknowledge him.
I would like to acknowledge the individual from B Square Beacon. Dave, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Dave Askins with the B Square Beacon. First off, I understand that when somebody asks a question during public comment, there's absolutely no legal obligation for anybody to answer it. But during the pandemic, the RDC and some other governing bodies have really been super about helping the press get answers to questions. Basically everything got answered through Mr. Underwood's commentary, and I just had one clarification that I'm hoping that I can get. It seems like this project falls into the general category of everything related to construction nowadays is more expensive than we thought it was going to be back when the project got planned. And I'm just wanted to confirm that that's the case with this, that the bids for the construction came back higher than expected, or that that's the question. Thanks.
Good, thanks. Larry, you can, after the meeting, if you don't mind just following up with B Square Beacon on that, that'd be, not Larry, sorry, Jeff. If you don't mind following up with B Square Beacon on that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, we'll coordinate with Larry and with Andrew on that. And
awesome. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you for the question. Okay, if there's no one else, going back to commissioners, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion of approval or denial.
This is David Walter. I understand this is not for funding, but just project approval. And that if they do need the funding, they'll come back at a later date and provide us resolution source that funding.
Correct.
With that understanding, I'd like to make a motion we accept resolution 21-31.
This is Deb Hutton, I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Byerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. All right, resolution 21-31 has been approved unanimously. All right, moving on to the second resolution of tonight, resolution 21-32, approval of design consultant contract for First Street reconstruction project.
Hi, I'm Pedro Durgas with the engineering department. The agenda item was mislabeled. I'm here to present the design contract for the Bloomington Hospital Reuse Infrastructure and Site Engineering Phase 1 East. The VS contract was approved previously by the RDC.
Okay, well, thanks for that amendment. Duly noted.
All right. It's my understanding back in January, a presentation was given to the RDC regarding the hospital reuse master plan. During that presentation, the design contract for the Phase 1 East portion that I'm presenting on tonight was discussed. During that presentation, it's my understanding the estimated design contract was about $1 million. It appears that was a very accurate estimate, as this contract was negotiated to a total not to exceed $1,048,880. This project will design the vision of the master plan for the for the Phase 1 East of the master plan, bound by 2nd Street to the north, 1st Street to the south, the Beeline to the east, and Rogers to the west. The project will create development-ready lots, and all the infrastructure and amenities of the greenway and additional roads shown in the master plan will be designed with this contract. I'm here for any questions.
So, Patrick, this is really the Beeline to the east and the Rogers Street to the west. So it's the whole package truly east of Rogers Street and east of the hospital as such, rather than the actual hospital parking lot space?
Correct. In the master plan, this was identified as the first project to approach this. Most of the land in the area bound by this project is IU hospital land and is part of the transfer agreement. And so this project will design the demo package for it, because the demolition that was part of the agreement is for the main hospital site. And so this will design the demo package and then also replat it for future development and build the new roads, the Madison, and then also the Greenway, which is an unnamed street so far, and the amenities with that, including a green infrastructure, kind of waterfall through the Greenway, and I think some other linear park amenities.
Because if my memory, maybe my memory is really bad, but most of my memories of maps of the Bloomington construction site or reuse master plan start at Rogers and go westward with all that you're talking about: redevelopment, housing, Greenway, et cetera, and have, in my memory, have not shown this eastern section.
The most recent master plan that came out definitely has this section, and this is identified as the first project, coupled with the First Street project that a reference was previously approved.
Okay, well, thank you.
No problem.
So when I go through the resolution, this is David Walter, towards the end, there are a couple aerial photographs that have borders. The first one, Exhibit A, is in green, and then Exhibit B is in red. And it looks like some of these properties we do not own as of yet. And of course, Cornerstone is included inside one of them and not on the other. So I guess we're basing this resolution on a couple maps that are not accurate, or pre-guess that we're going to acquire these properties and should include them right now as part of the fee that we pay? Or is there some adjustment here if we do acquire more property? I'm a little bit unclear of that.
So the first map showing Exhibit A is the survey area that is included in this contract. It was included by the consultant at a request by me because they detailed their survey area by right-of-way to right-of-way line, and it felt as if they missed the interior of the site. So they included this map to make it very clear that that is included. The second exhibit is showing basically where we will do the environmental studies and the areas included with that. And it is the properties that are excluded in this include the Centerstone property that I believe is rented by Centerstone but owned by Monroe County. And then at the southeast corner, which is at Morden and First, it is my understanding that we are not acquiring those properties at all. And those properties, from our look at it and our consultants look at it, will not impact this project. There is one property that I think will impact this project that we do not currently own. And it is the property labeled 8, the 605 South Madison Street. And Andrew's turned on his camera, so I imagine he has something to say regarding that.
Hi, Andrew Seabour, City Engineer, Engineering Department. Everything Patrick reported just then was spot on. I think I was just going to quickly state that when most engineering design contracts are initiated, it's almost always the case where we don't acquire all of the right-of-way that is necessary for a project to be constructed. So there's nothing necessarily unusual with approving a design contract, knowing that some right-of-way or temporary right-of-way or right-of-entries are going to need to be coordinated as a project is developed before construction. So I just wanted to add that this isn't necessarily unusual.
I think though, from Dave's standpoint, is we have phase 1 that we're talking about, and looking at the timeline, it's planned out in months, and we're not sure if all of a sudden we start acquiring more right-of-ways and properties, now we start seeing this amount going up, right? Beyond the $1,048,000. Now we're talking about $1,300,000, $1,400,000. And it's just, when does phase 1 end if we don't have all of the properties? If we have to go back and then revise phase 1, now that's an additional cost. So I understand where you're coming from. I think you're Director Seabour now. I would like to know, what is the expectation then? Are we looking at revisions? Are we looking at, I'm not going to ask you to make an estimated cost here, but how's this going to affect the timeline if we don't have these properties?
Yeah, I will quickly respond, and maybe Patrick or Jeff or others could weigh in on the right-of-way acquisition questions. But generally, as it relates to this design contract, whether or not we are able, the city or RDC is able to acquire some additional properties, really will not affect this design contract. So I wouldn't expect us coming back with a resolution to increase it because certain properties were not acquired. If anything, it might potentially reduce this design contract. So at least from this specific request that we're taking to you now, I don't think that that will get changed.
The goal, adding on to what Andrew's definitely correct in everything that he said, I just wanted to add on to it. The goal of this contract is to include the entire vision of the master plan for this area in the design. Like Andrew said, if for some reason we cannot do work on certain properties that impact the design, then those might be pulled out of either the design or the construction. The design might still progress, but the construction, it would be pulled out of the construction phase or something like that. Shrewsbury was a part of the master plan and is very familiar with it. And we worked very closely with them to ensure that this design contract encompassed everything. If you look at the schedule, this is an extremely fast-paced project. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to reach a point where we had to sit on our hands and wait until we had additional funding approval. We wanted to make sure that this was going to take care of all of it. I cannot guarantee that, but that was definitely the goal.
This is David Walter. Again, I understand where you're coming from. It's just property we do not own. We have to acquire permission to enter that property for survey. And that's of concern. If that permission is withheld, then less work means less money in fee to me. But we have to move forward on this. Like you're saying, we need to get the contract in and just kind of keep that out there as a item that we need to be advised on as you move forward. If you run into any difficulty accessing private property for your survey work under this contract.
Commissioner Walter, if I may, just really briefly, obviously Andrew and Patrick have done an excellent job describing this. We are in contact with those property owners and trying to maintain open lines of communication as best we can on a variety of topics. And so this is something where, of course, we would want to be sensitive to that. I'd also like to, if you would like, just share my screen just to show what was in the master plan for this particular phase 1 development of this eastern block, just to kind of give some context, because I think it's not quite as evident in the contract documents themselves. This area right here is phase 1 east, which we were talking about, which the master plan called for, upgrading the streets along Morton Street here, 2nd Street here, creating a new Madison Street that's enhanced and adding a new greenway with a greenway street. So that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of the scope that was called for, at least in the master plan for this project, and it was contemplated. And we will have to be sensitive to obviously what properties we have and what conditions are there. We do anticipate having enough of the properties to get a very good sense of everything that we'll need to do on this project without hopefully anything additional. But I just want to provide some of that context for not only the commissioners, but also the members of the public who may be watching, just so they have the context.
Thanks, Larry. I appreciate that.
I did want to mention with this, for the 2nd Street portion, this design contract is only doing a conceptual design. Currently, we have 2nd Street as a possible future project through the MPO. And so I did want to mention that while 2nd Street here is shown as part of this master plan, we will only be doing an initial conceptual design to ensure that our future streets tie in with the potential MPO project on 2nd Street.
This is Deb Hutton. Just a follow-up question regarding those 3 properties that we don't own. What's the timeline in terms of those conversations with those owners to try and get ownership of them?
As soon as possible is the timeline. We're doing our best and reaching out. Alex can add more context, certainly, but it's something we're interested in, And we understand that this is a huge project for the city of Bloomington. We want to make sure that we do the best job we can.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Not hearing any, I'll open up to the public for comment. There
Mr. Eskins, is your hand from previous or is this a new hand?
I'm sorry, that's left over. Apologize.
No problem.
Oh, totally fine. All right, not hearing any. Back to the commission. If there's any commissioners that have any comments on this, on resolution 21-32 right now? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Deborah Meyerson, so moved.
Deb Hutton, second.
Okay, we have a motion for, I believe, approval and a second. So let's go ahead and go to roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. All right, resolution 21-32 has been approved unanimously.
Got a question though. Is the resolution going to be renamed?
Director Zodi or Christina, can you answer that?
We can amend the title if the commissioners desire. We'll amend the title to reflect the correct project. And apologies for the mislabeling.
We can just get that turned around. You want to make an amendment in the notes, or excuse me, in the minutes? Make sure that's reflected on the posted packets.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and Larry, what would be the process for that?
Yeah, just take a vote on amending the title. We'll just do a new roll call vote. We'll have the minutes reflect that, and then the resolution will be changed officially.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to rename resolution 21-32 to a title that is more appropriate, reflecting the contents of the resolution.
This is David Walter. It probably should read approval of design consultant contract for Phase 1 East.
I like that.
Reconstruction project, or just Phase 1 East, because back in the whereas we described fully what that means.
So, okay, so I believe that is a motion with the language for the title. Is there a second?
Sure.
Deborah Meyerson, second.
Okay. Let's go to roll call.
Deb Hutton, second. Deb Hutton, yes, sorry.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. Motion has passed unanimously. All right. Moving forward to resolution 21-33, approval of addendum to design contract funding for the multi-modal improvements along 17th Street between Monroe Street and Grant Street.
Good evening. My name is Neil Copper. I'm a senior project engineer in the engineering department. This is a project that installs a multi-use path on the north side of 17th Street between Monroe and Grant. It also replaces the traffic signal at the Kinzer intersection and makes another other improvements in the corridor, including street resurfacing, replacing curb ramps in the sidewalks along the south side of the street. The project is currently under design right now. We have Lockmuller Group with an existing design contract. Those that were on the commission about 2 years ago when the contract was approved may recall that we talked about an upcoming amendment to include right-of-way acquisition. Basically, the services in the original contract only went through the APAs, the appraisal problem analysis, and we knew that we need to come back to include appraisal, review appraisal, and the actual buying for that right-of-way. So that's what we're doing here now that we know the actual number of parcels and the type of appraisals that we need. We're updating the contract to include those services. I also want to mention that well, a couple of things. So one, there is federal funding going towards construction of this project. That is allocated through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then because there's federal funding involved, when we do our right-of-way acquisition, we're required to follow the Federal Uniform Relocation Act, which is slightly different than the way the RDC purchases right-of-way. So when we actually make it to the right-of-way acquisition phase, the city will actually purchase the right-of-way and reimbursed by the RDC. I believe that comes through typically in your claim cycle. So I just wanted to go ahead and mention that is coming up in the future after we get through the appraisals and the services that are included in this amendment. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have a question. You mentioned this is for a multimodal path on the north side of the street. With the new construction of Tri-North that's predominantly towards 17th Street, as previously it was a little bit more access from the Monroe side, is there going to be, does this right-of-way acquisition include a way to link productively the access on the north side of the street so that students or staff, faculty can also reach Tri-North?
Yeah, that's a great question. The project as designed right now, it doesn't specifically include like a mid-block crosswalk or anything like that adjacent to Tri-North. As it is today, the roundabout just to the west would be the closest kind of formalized crosswalk at that location. Certainly something that we could look at, but it is not part of the design right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? I'm not hearing any. I'll open up to the public for comment. Not seeing any raised hands. Go back to the commissioners. If there's no comments or questions regarding resolution 21-33, I will entertain a motion.
Deb Hutton, I'll move to approve resolution 2134.
Deborah Meyerson, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Go to roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. Resolution 21-33 has been approved unanimously. I almost made a joke about the title, making sure that was correct. Moving on to resolution 21-34, approval of agreement with EV Connect for charging stations for the 4th Street parking garage. Who's up?
Oh, it looks like this will be me. So this is almost identical to what you all had passed for the Trades District garage, which is one of the requirements for building these new garages was that we would have, not just a requirement, but generally thing that we would want is that we would have a certain number of electric vehicle charging stations in each one, in addition to the ability to expand that capacity in both garages as electric vehicles become more popular and the necessity grows for these types of charging stations. So this is the initial contract to install the base units. I believe there's going to be 4 or 5 base units. They each have 2 charging stations each attached to them. Additionally, this includes an extended warranty for one of those based on a state grant that we expect to receive from the Volkswagen settlement from the state of Indiana, which approved one to pay for 1 charging station in the Trades District garage and 1 charging station in the 4th Street garage. These will be ordered upon your approval, and then they will get installed in the garage appropriately, and hopefully we'll see a lot of expanded use. And just to correct, since this was part of the presentation last time, there's a nominal fee that gets charged for charging your electric vehicle in the garages. I believe there's a 3% credit card fee, and then I think it's maybe it's a couple of cents per kilowatt hour to charge your vehicle. So it actually comes out to be a pretty good bargain if you need to charge your electric vehicle, for those of you going around in Teslas or a new Ford Lightning truck. So.
All right. Any questions, commissioners? Not hearing any. I'll go to the public for any comments. All right. Not hearing any from the public. Let's go back to the commission, and I will entertain a motion for resolution 21-34.
This is David Walter. I'll make a motion. We approve resolution 21-34.
Deborah Meyerson, second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's go to roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. Resolution 21-34 approved unanimously. On to the last item of new business tonight is resolution 21-35. Nothing like having a sick child. 1 second. There we go. Approval of electronic meeting policy.
Well, this one's definitely me. I can definitely, I'm ready for this one. No, and the title's correct. So we have two good things going on with resolution.
Amazing. Appreciate it, Larry.
Yeah.
Doing great.
So the General Assembly this past year, obviously since the COVID year, we've all been operating as we are now, entirely electronically, which was a limited option in years past, just because of the way the statutes were written. We were only able to operate under the governor's executive orders of emergency declaration for COVID-19. In its past session, the General Assembly passed an amended version of Indiana Code 5-14 1.5 3.5, which allows each and every governing body and of a public agency, which the RDC qualifies, to adopt an electronic meetings policy. And so what this would allow is, even after the governor's order, emergency order expires, which currently it's set to expire at the end of June, and the governor has signaled that he does not plan to renew the portions for all electronic meetings. This electronic meeting policy would allow some members of the RDC to continue to participate electronically, and members of the public to continue to participate electronically via Zoom right now, or whatever means we may choose in the future. Just to highlight some of the rules that are in the new statute, this electronic meeting policy that you're asked to adopt, one, it's required by statute that you adopt a policy, so that's why this comes with the exhibit of the policy. This policy tracks the statute exactly, just so that we don't run afoul of anything. And a couple of the things is that it requires, obviously, the communication whenever it's electronically to be observed, and to simultaneously communicate with each other, which is covered by Zoom. It also placed limitations on the number of meetings and the number of individuals that can participate electronically, which I think is probably the most salient point for you all. It doesn't, no more than 50% can participate electronically at any given time. So for the RDC, which is a 5-member board, that means at least 3 people will have to be in person and allow 2 members to participate electronically. And throughout the year, any given member cannot participate in more than half of the meetings electronically. So you will have to be in person attendance for at least half of the meetings throughout the year electronically. I did not write the statute. I did not make this up. This is part of the code and what they have settled on. It will allow you, if there is another emergency declaration for any reason, this does permit full electronic participation under those emergency declarations. But whenever there's not an emergency declaration, you'll have to go by the 50% limits. There are some exceptions to those 50% limits, which you can see in the policy, which include military service, illness or other medical condition, death of a relative, or an emergency involving actual or threatened injury to persons or property, which is a particularly interesting exception, but certainly we would be able to work with you on that and arguing vehemently that you qualify. Obviously, we would take regular minutes as we have been doing and following a lot of the procedures that we have developed over the past year or so. And those are mostly reflected in this particular policy. It also allows staff to participate electronically unless there's some need for them to be in person. So an example of that might be Christina or I often get signatures after a meeting, so we might have to be in person, but otherwise, you know, if Mr. Underwood or Mr. Crowley are out, or Mr. Zodi are out at a particular time, they can participate electronically still. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry, I know that's a lot of talking about the electronic meetings policy, but.
No, it's great. And I think that it's interesting going from a plan commission, which is 9, you know, to us, it's 5. It makes it a little more difficult from a logistics standpoint for RDC. I mean, it's, I don't know, we've proven that this is we were able to do this in a very professional way, even though we may have crying kids in the background. You know, it's just interesting that we have to go to this route. But with that being said, that's also the workforce too, right? So a lot of it's going hybrid. So I guess from our standpoint, do any commissioners have any concerns or issues with the policy and how it's written? I'll let you go first before I say anything.
This is Deb Hutton. I'll just ask a question to Larry or maybe Christina. Even though it's got to be written up in the minutes, who's present, who's by electronic connection, and who's absent. Will someone keep track so that, you know, in the middle of November, I'm like, which one? How many have I done? Am I in or out? I mean, I have my calendar, I can do it, but any just in case I think I'm at the wrong edge of one of those compilation of numbers. Will there be sort of will Christina keep a list that can say, Deb, you need to personally attend all the rest of November and in December, or else you will be in arrears to the total number, for example.
Yeah, we'd keep those numbers and alert you. One of the things we would ask the commissioners to do, if you're going to participate electronically and you have an idea of maybe in advance you're going to be on vacation, but you still want to participate or whatever the case may be, is to give us some advance warning also so we can pre-plan that. At least 7 days notice would be fantastic. I understand that that's not always going to be possible. And if it's not, you know, we'll work with you the best. Christine and I obviously work closely together, although I admit she does all of the heavy lifting for scheduling meetings, and she's fantastic at it. But we would absolutely keep a list and kind of advise you of when you could, or maybe you're running out of abilities to participate electronically, and also try to give you some advance notice so you don't just hit the ball immediately and then have, you know, 4 months where you can't possibly. But as we noted, there are some exceptions here. Obviously, there are emergency exceptions and illness exceptions, which please be aware of.
I'm sorry that this extra Zoom for the public and for us is a nice feature going forward, but it's creating for you and Christina an additional layer of record keeping and notices and who's where. And so I'm sorry for that part.
This is not unusual for the General Assembly. They have a knack for creating interesting and creative statutes that have a lot of moving parts. So it's not terribly surprising, but I think this will be workable. At least it provides a flexible option. I think what it's really great for, and what we found it's really great for, is public participation. Obviously, CATS has been a fantastic partner, allowing people to observe the meetings in real time. We anticipate that that'll continue, but Zoom has just added an extra layer of an avenue of participation for the public. So there are other benefits besides the commissioners, and certainly anyone who wants to attend all of the meetings in person. We're going to have a room. It's going to be spaced out. We'll have the ability there, and you're always welcome to attend.
I appreciate Deb's question because that was similar to one that I had. A separate question I have, which is not only specific to RDC, but here we are, which is there's been inconsistent captioning for Zoom meetings across the board. Like city council meetings or common council meetings are captioned routinely. And one of the advantages of Zoom as an option, especially since the public will still be invited to participate in that way, is to include both captioning and or live transcript. And I just think that's an important opportunity for accessibility. And I'm just wondering, even though that's not obviously the purpose of this resolution, it nonetheless is framing how meetings will take place going forward. And I'm just wondering where there might be an opportunity to address that particular consideration as part of the overall scope.
Yeah, so that's something I actually toyed with a little bit. Is we can make more restrictive rules in regard to participation of electronic meetings, and we can be more prescriptive about how we conduct these meetings. For this particular policy, because it's going to exist in perpetuity, I wanted you all to have the maximum flexibility in terms of, that's why there's no reference to Zoom specifically, there's no reference to platform or technology or anything like that. So when we get 3 years down the line, after we've had this convenience matter of using Zoom maybe or Google or whatever you may use, we'll have the flexibility to change. I think, but those suggestions are excellent, and I don't see a reason why we wouldn't be able to implement those. And certainly that's something Christine and I could talk about for future meetings, is making sure that we have those enabled on Zoom and any other platform that we may use in the future. If you all would like to have a more prescriptive or more detailed policy, we can certainly do that. But my personal advice is to leave this as flexible as possible, and then we can deal with some of those at the edges matters of how we deal with comments and how we're dealing with the chat and everything a little bit fluidly. I think that's worked really well for a small board like the RDC. It gets a little trickier, as President Kapp has noted, is when you're talking about the Plan Commission, there's 9 members and there's a lot of public. It gets very difficult to manage that without being very prescriptive. But for the RDC, I think that this works well, being flexible. But certainly, yeah, accessibility issues are something that we do care about, and we'll look into those features. I'll try to give you the longest answer possible to your question.
That's very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We did use those features for a couple meetings in like, I think later 2020, early 2021. I think it was later 2020. We tested it out. It wasn't very accurate, but you know, we can definitely circle back to it.
And one of the things I'll point out is that CATS does offer closed captioning as well. So as a dual option. So we do have there's the Zoom meetings, but I think the software that I've observed CATS using is much more accurate than the software that Zoom uses. Zoom is a real-time kind of capturing and is more prone to mistakes. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to do both.
Okay. Any other questions by commission? I mean, this is kind of a statute thing, so I don't really think public comment here is really necessary or applicable. But anyone from the public? Not seeing anything. Let's go back to the commission. I'll entertain a motion on resolution 21-35.
This is David Walter. I'll make a motion. We accept resolution 21-35.
Deborah Meyerson, second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, and let's go to roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
David Walter, yes.
Nick Kappas, yes. Resolution 21-35 is unanimously approved. So that concludes today's new business. Moving on to our seventh item on the agenda is business general discussion. Any general discussion? Good for the order? No? Well, I appreciate everyone's time tonight. This was, even though there were only 5 resolutions, I think that there's a lot of good discussion, a lot of great questions. I like where this is going. So thanks for everyone's participation. With that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Deb Hutton, so moved.
For a second?
Second, Deborah Meyerson.
All right. Let's go roll call.
Deb Hutton, yes.
Deborah Meyerson, yes.
Dave Walter, yes.
McCaps, yes. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. You're adjourned.